Thank you very much, Mark. Dear friends, esteemed guests, respected members of our teams, distinguished journalists. Today we welcome to Ukraine our friend and ally on the eve of Ukraine's Independence Day. And in every sense of the word, an ally. Mark has supported Ukraine, has supported our defense, and has strengthened our relationships with other partners throughout all these years. From the very beginning of this war, from the onset of the full-scale invasion, both during his tenure as Prime Minister of the Netherlands and now as Secretary General of NATO. We deeply value your personal support, Mark. I sincerely thank you. Today, our primary discussion focused on the next joint steps that can bring greater security to Ukraine and to all of Europe, and move us closer to a real end to this war. The first point is security guarantees. Together with all our partners, we have reached an important mutual understanding with the United States of America. The United States is ready to be part of the security guarantees for Ukraine. This is the first time we have achieved such a level of commitment. Negotiations are now taking place practically every day regarding the specific content of these guarantees, at the level of national security advisors, at the level of our military, and at the level of diplomats from all teams. Yesterday, there was a call involving Ukraine, all of Europe, and the United States of America. Today, this work continues. I am grateful to everyone involved in this process. Our shared goal is precisely what is being formulated in dialogue with our partners. Guarantees akin to Article 5, that is, the fifth article of the NATO Treaty. These must be truly effective security guarantees. That is the outcome we must achieve. There must be a clearly defined architecture. Which countries assist us on the ground, which ensure the security of our skies, which guarantees safety at sea, all in support of Ukraine. This includes financing our army, the scale and quality of the Ukrainian armed forces that will serve as a reliable shield for the nation. Much of this relies on our cooperation with partners and collaboration with NATO, which is already at a significant level. The Ukrainian army and our defense infrastructure are now deeply integrated into the alliance's system. There is extensive bilateral cooperation with NATO member states. We will certainly continue all practical levels of our cooperation with NATO. The second point is weaponry for Ukraine's defenders. The PURL program is already operational. Mark, I thank you sincerely for this initiative. It is a program that enables purchasing American weapons with partner funds. This program already includes $1.5 billion from our European partners. New participants will be joining soon. We thank each and every one of them. This allows Ukraine to purchase vital items from the U.S., including Patriot air defense systems, HIMARS, and other weaponry. Mark, I want to thank you once again for organizing and coordinating this program. It is important that each month brings additional funding and effectiveness to the initiative. On average, this amounts to $1 billion per month. In our talks with Mark, we considered $1 to $1.5 billion per month. This requires continued effort. We discussed how to engage more countries in this program. It is also critical that there is sufficient funding for our domestic programs for the production of Ukrainian drones. This was the second part of our conversation with our teams, focused exclusively on domestic manufacturing. Ukraine's production potential is significantly greater than our current financial capacity. We are working to close this gap. Today, Mark has already seen our drones, various models, all highly effective. Indeed, this is the number one weapon that holds back the enemy, sustains the front line, and reduces the number of Ukrainian casualties. This is, without question, the most important factor. And it is drones that make this possible. The Russians are increasing their use of drones. We are witnessing this. We have everything necessary to counter it, and funding is essential. In the near future, we must close this deficit. We have already discussed it. It is no secret. The shortfall amounts to slightly more than $6 billion. But we are counting heavily on support from our partners. The next point is diplomacy. We discussed key details of our joint efforts to enable meaningful negotiations to end the war. We frequently consult with Mark to determine the best course of action, especially within our partnership with the United States and President Trump. We had, I believe, a historically significant visit to Washington, to the capital. We reached an agreement on a security guarantee, which I have already mentioned. We also discussed the formats for a meeting with the Russian leader, bilateral formats, trilateral formats. You have also heard about all of this. It is at the level of leaders that the issue of ending the war must be resolved. But we now see that the Russians are doing everything they can to prevent such a meeting. Ukraine, unlike Russia, is not afraid of any meetings with leaders. We are ready to work productively, to the fullest extent possible. We hope that our partners will help ensure at least a minimally constructive position from the Russian side. They must be compelled to engage in diplomacy. Strong sanctions are needed if they refuse diplomatic solutions to this war, if they are unwilling to end it. We are counting on robust packages from our partners. We believe everything must be done to stop Russia from evading meetings. We see a strong signal from the USA that they are ready to act. Europe and other countries within the framework of the coalition of the willing are prepared to assist. We are grateful for this. A serious coalition platform has been established. It includes more than 30 countries, among them Japan, Canada, and others. It is a pro-Ukrainian coalition, and it is substantial. It is essential to implement all of this. And that is precisely what we are working on. Glory to Ukraine.
Statement by the Secretary General of NATO.
Honorable Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, thank you for the very warm welcome here in Ukraine as always. It is truly good to be with you again in your country, and I am pleased to stand beside you once more following our exceptionally important meeting in Washington earlier this week. After 3.5 years of Russian aggression, Ukraine remains strong, showing remarkable resilience and courage. Your friends and partners in NATO continue to support you. Our support is unwavering, steadfast, and constantly growing. In particular, thanks to the PURL initiative, a mechanism for supplying weapons from the list of priority needs, critical deliveries of American-made weaponry are being secured through funding from alliance member states. In just 1 month, as you have already mentioned, the initiative mobilized an additional $1.5 billion for the procurement of urgently needed arms and equipment, air defense systems, ammunition, and more. Further assistance packages are expected to follow. Allies support your defense industry with investments that boost both security and economic development. This morning, I visited one of your production facilities and witnessed firsthand the innovation in drone technologies that your country can rightfully be proud of. We are cooperating within NATO's Security Assistance and Training Initiative for Ukraine, with a command center based in Germany, to ensure your armed forces have the necessary capabilities for today and for the future. Our collaboration includes the Ukraine e-NATO Training Center in Poland, our Kyiv office, and the NATO e-Ukraine Council. This list continues to grow. We stand with you because we share common values, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. We are united because we share a common goal, the preservation of Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. We share a mutual and interdependent security. Dear Volodymyr, your country has been actively defending freedom for 3.5 years. Your people have endured horrific suffering, countless sleepless nights under relentless Russian shelling of residential buildings, hospitals, industrial sites, and infrastructure. Ukrainian soldiers are fighting bravely on the front lines. They have repelled and continue to restrain the Russian onslaught. We support you, we honor you, and we remain with you in your efforts to establish a just and lasting peace. On Monday, we stood together in Washington alongside the President of the United States and numerous European leaders. We all sought to seize this opportunity to finally bring an end to this terrible war and to achieve peace and security after years of sorrow and suffering. President Trump has made it a priority not only to break the deadlock in relations with President Putin, but also to make it clear that the United States will participate in providing security guarantees for Ukraine. These reliable guarantees will play an extremely important role. That is why we are now working on defining them. So, when the time comes for you, dear Volodymyr, to begin these bilateral negotiations, you will know that the strength of Ukraine's friends stands with you, ensuring that Russia adheres to any agreement, whatever its form, and that Russia will never again lay claim to a single square kilometer of Ukrainian land. Mr. President, dear Volodymyr, I admire your courage and your leadership, and the enduring strength of the Ukrainian people. As you prepare to celebrate Independence Day, know that NATO will continue to stand firmly with Ukraine. Once again, my sincere thanks. Glory to Ukraine.
Dear colleagues, it is now time for your questions. Please, we are Ukraine.
Thank you for the opportunity. Much of today's discussion was dedicated to security guarantees. Mr. President, as you noted, military and national security officials work on this daily. In the past few days, have you received details on the response mechanism for another attack on Ukraine? How do you interpret Lavrov's statements that security guarantees should include Russia? Is this an attempt to delay the process of designing the architecture of these guarantees, or is it something else? I have a similar question for you, Mr. Secretary General. Will these security guarantees truly differ from those under the Budapest Memorandum? Will they genuinely protect Ukraine, and what will be done to ensure they are effective in practice?
Shall I begin? Well, first and foremost, I agree. It is important that Ukraine, the United States of America, and Europe are working together in unity. And we are speaking about security guarantees. We have agreed that there will be two layers. The first layer involves establishing a peace agreement, a ceasefire, or both. This layer ensures the armed forces of Ukraine are fully strengthened to face any challenges. The second layer will consist of what the United States of America and Europe will provide. That is precisely what we are working on. As we all know, the Budapest Memorandum and the Minsk negotiations did not result in real guarantees. Therefore, our new guarantees must not resemble those past efforts. Ukraine, Europe, and the United States of America are working together to establish guarantees of such strength that Putin, sitting in Moscow, would never even consider attacking Ukraine again.
To begin with, yes, work is underway, and video conferences are held daily. These take place at the levels I have mentioned, including military command. There are both video and audio meetings, because our command is stationed at the front. They are discussing the structure and infrastructure of how this could be implemented. Separate meetings are held among political and security advisors. Europe and America are united in this effort, as I stated earlier, that is a fact. This is the beginning of a major undertaking, and it is far from simple. Security guarantees consist of what our partners can provide to Ukraine, and also of what kind of army Ukraine must maintain, and where we can find the capacity to preserve the strength of our armed forces. Let me illustrate how complex this is with one example. When we speak about aircraft, specifically F-16 fighter jets, we are deeply grateful to all our partners for their coordination and for helping us establish an air fleet, or at least the beginning of one. We do not yet have all the aircraft we need, but we know that the current number is insufficient to guarantee air security. There is a specific quantity required, which I am not yet ready to disclose. But it is essential that we are all aligned, and that our partners share this understanding. They do share the vision of the presence we need, and the scale of the air fleet required. Achieving this demands, first and foremost, political will. Second, it requires manufacturing capacity. Because we are seeking real assistance, not aircraft delivered 20 years from now, once they are produced. This means someone must yield their place in the production queue. Someone must transfer newer aircraft. And in addition to that, someone must finance it. This is also a very complex process. That is why, when we speak about security guarantees, the details are not simple. All of these elements are being discussed, and each one is important. That is why work on security guarantees continues. It is crucial that all parties have expressed political will and a commitment to unity. Now, regarding the second part of your question about the Russian side, as Mark just stated clearly, we are all on the same side. Security guarantees for Ukraine are needed to ensure that we, and our children and grandchildren, know with certainty that Russia will not attack us again. These are guarantees against the aggressor. They are for the sake of Ukrainian security, our sovereignty, and our territorial integrity. Because the aggressor is Russia. When Russia raises the issue of security guarantees, I must honestly say, I do not yet understand who is threatening them. They attacked us. They are on our territory. I do not quite grasp what kind of guarantees an aggressor requires. Guarantees of what? So for now, I do not see the substance of that proposal. I believe our partners in Europe want to ensure that this war is never repeated. And the only trigger for such a war is Russia.
Agence France Presse, please.
My first question is addressed to the Secretary General of NATO. Continuing the discussion on security guarantees, why is it not possible to deploy troops directly on the ground? My second question concerns Article 5 as a form of guarantee. Will it be effective without the deployment of a military contingent?
As President Zelensky has already stated, these discussions are currently taking place at various levels. Security advisors are working together, ministries are working together, and our teams are coordinating. We are presently considering this matter. Foreign ministers and national security advisors from the United States of America and European countries are involved. We aim to develop this jointly. At this stage, it is too early to speak about the final outcomes. Indeed, we do not want a repetition of the Budapest Memorandum or the Minsk agreements. We genuinely want these guarantees to be effective. And at the second level, as I have mentioned, in addition to strengthening the armed forces of Ukraine, NATO is also providing its own guarantees. We will be discussing our command center in Wiesbaden, which is assisting the armed forces of Ukraine. We will continue to develop the Ukrainian armed forces as a sovereign and proud nation moves forward toward peace.
Different countries offer varying levels of support and possess different capabilities. It is too early to specify who will provide military personnel, intelligence, naval presence, or air operations. Some are ready to finance these efforts, while others, due to constitutional limits, cannot participate directly but can provide financial support. Some are demanding, while others, like Turkey, stated at our recent meeting that they want to be guarantors of Ukraine's maritime security. They stated, "We are professionals. We know how to assist in the Black Sea. We will focus specifically on this. Our presence there will be full." Therefore, it is still too early to speak about all participating countries. The infrastructure will be formalized, after which we'll know who can contribute, how, and to what extent.
Life News.
Thank you for this opportunity. My first question is addressed to President Zelensky. Any details on preparations for your bilateral meeting with President Putin? Especially after Lavrov's recent statements claiming a need to elevate negotiations through new groups. He referred to the Istanbul framework of the year 2022 as the foundation. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of intensified airstrikes on Ukraine. And my question to Mr. Mark Rutte: first of all, we are grateful for your support. We want NATO's response to the recent Russian airstrike just dozens of kilometers from Warsaw. Do you not feel that President Putin continues to test Article 5 of the NATO Charter? Thank you.
Yes, we are coordinating our response very closely with our colleagues from Poland. We are cooperating with them in a very tight and consistent manner. I won't disclose details, but they must respond to this incident. So we are monitoring the situation, rest assured.
Our discussions in Washington with our partners and with the United States of America have been ongoing. I had an extended conversation with President Trump. We reached a shared understanding of how the diplomatic track could proceed. We do not have any agreements with the Russian side. Our discussions were with President Trump. And in my view, he is the only person today who can stop President Putin. We agreed that it would be appropriate to pursue a diplomatic path. I supported the approach proposed by President Trump. We spoke about the need for a trilateral meeting. Later, he communicated with the Russian side. He said, "Let us begin with a bilateral track." And he clarified that this was a proposal from the Russians, a bilateral track first, followed by a trilateral one. I do not want us to set any conditions that could later be used as obstacles to ending the war. Therefore, I said that we are ready. Ideally, the format would be trilateral from the outset. But if President Trump believes that this is the format in which we can move forward, we are prepared to support a bilateral track, followed by a trilateral one. Let us now discuss the date and the location. That is all I have at this moment.
Final question, please, BBC.
Thank you. Catty Watson, BBC. My first question is for President Zelensky. Negotiations have continued all week, and I've spoken with Ukrainians unsure of the outcome. Do you believe that Ukrainians feel you are not in the same position now as you were 1 week ago? And to the Secretary General, of course, we now see the Ukrainian flag alongside the NATO flag. Do you expect any provocations? What will happen if Russia declares, "No, we reject all guarantees, we do not agree to this"?
Indeed, Ukraine, NATO, the United States of America, and Europe are all working together and cooperating very effectively, as I have already stated. Together with Ukraine, we have established a joint structure in Poland to draw lessons from this horrific war and to understand what it means for all alliance countries, how to build their own armed forces and how to assist Ukraine in doing so. We have a command center in Wiesbaden, where we are coordinating all necessary support for Ukraine from NATO member states. We are actively engaged in ensuring long-term training for the armed forces of Ukraine so that they are interoperable with NATO and meet its standards, maximally meet those standards. We also have a comprehensive support program, and we are now procuring lethal weaponry from American stockpiles, air defense systems, interceptors, Patriot systems, all of which are urgently needed. NATO is involved in all of this. At the summit in Washington, we declared Ukraine's irreversible path toward NATO membership, and that is a fact. Some member states, including the United States of America and Hungary, have said, "Not now, perhaps never," that these are plans for the future. But in the meantime, we are ensuring very close cooperation so that Ukraine is truly interoperable. As was stated on Monday, not only European countries, but also Ukraine and the President of the United States of America affirmed their commitment to supporting Ukraine. I would like to highlight very positively his contribution and leadership in this regard. We were also very successful at the summit in The Hague, where we reached an agreement on allocating 5% of NATO countries' gross domestic product toward defense spending. This will also contribute to the procurement of weapons for Ukraine. Every day we are working together to secure peace in the region and to bring an end to this terrible war. Not only Ukrainians, not only Europeans, but also the United States of America, including NATO member states. We are working in close and coordinated partnership. Earlier this summer, we were in Odessa with the President, and I will return again because we have exceptionally strong working relations.
I believe I understood your question correctly. I will try to answer, and please feel free to clarify if needed. In my view, whether it was 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, it does not matter. Russia was where it is now, and where it has always been. It does not want to end the war. It never wanted to, and it still does not. It seeks to issue ultimatums and, through those ultimatums, delay any possibility of ending this war. They are trying to prevent President Trump from imposing sanctions and avoid pressure from the United States, which is fully capable of applying it. That is what Russia is doing. And their intentions have certainly not changed. The visit to Washington demonstrated European unity. In a single day, the largest, or among the largest, countries supporting us, countries of Europe surrounding Ukraine, gathered and arrived. That was a major success for Ukraine. And it sent a strong signal to the United States of America that countries around the world are capable of uniting very quickly when justice is at stake. Absolutely. The fact that America, at this moment, and President Trump said, "Okay, we are joining the security guarantees," I consider that a success for Europe. We do not yet know, perhaps, success is too strong a word, but for now, it sounded like success. Why? Because security guarantees are indeed necessary for Ukraine. But without America, Europe alone cannot provide all the capabilities it might otherwise be able to offer. And the reasons for that are clear. The unity of America and Europe is extremely important, and that was a key signal during our meetings. Again, I emphasize, I do not know how this will end today, but it is already far better than it was 1 or 2 weeks ago. This unification in Washington did take place. Yes, it is political for now. Yes, these are only the first steps. Our teams are just beginning to work on the security guarantees. But it was an important signal from America and from the President. And now the Russians are trying to do something else to avoid meeting. But the issue is not merely about holding a meeting. The issue is that they do not want to end the war. A meeting is one of the components of how to end the war. It is not everything. It is one component. And because they do not want to end the war, they will continue to seek space to avoid doing so. That space must be reduced. The unity of America and Europe reduces that space, the space for war.